1984 saw the release of a Steven Spielberg and Chris Columbus film called Gremlins, a horror comedy that focused on little monsters who terrorized a community. This was a massive hit at the box office and made a US dollar total of $212.9 million on a budget of only $11 million. This showed an interest in these creature features, and the next few years a number of similar films were released. These horror comedy creature features included Ghoulies, Munchies, Hobgoblins, and today's film focus, Critters. Critters was released in 1986, directed by Stephen Herrick in his directorial debut before going on to direct Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in 1989, and other memorable movies like 1992 sports comedy The Mighty Ducks and the 1996 live-action version of Disney's 101 Dalmatians. The basic plot follows a group of small, furry, hedgehog-like carnivorous alien creatures who land on Earth to escape some shape-shifting bounty hunters and end up harassing the Brown family on a rural Kansas farm. The cast included Dee Wallace, playing the Browns' mother Helen, Billy Greenbush as the father character Jay, Scott Grimes as son Bradley, Nadine Van der Velde as sister April, and introduced Don Keith Opper as Charlie, a family friend and character that would connect 4 of the franchise's films. As I mentioned earlier, there was some controversy that the film borrowed elements from the 1984 Gremlins. However, the screenplay for the film had been written in 1983, and so many similarities were deemed just coincidental. The film did good at the box office, but was obviously nowhere near as successful as the similar film Gremlins. It made $13.2 million US on a $2 million budget. However, this was enough to secure a second theatrical sequel. Coming 2 years later in 1988, we had Critters 2, The Main Course. Critters 2 was directed by Mick Garris in his directorial debut. His directorial movies are few, but he was writer in the 1993 Disney hit Hocus Pocus, and has seen more success directing on the smaller screen, with episodes of Pretty Little Liars and Once Upon a Time to his name. The film was released 2 years after the first, and so the story takes place 2 years later. Scott Grimes returns as Bradley Brown, coming back to his hometown at Easter to visit his grandmother. When some undiscovered critter eggs, which we see hinted at the end of the first film, are mistakenly sold as Easter decorations, the creatures hatch and start to terrorize the town. However, Charlie returns as a newly founded bounty hunter to try and save them. The third film, titled Critters 3, would be a straight-to-home video release and came in 1991. Directed by Christine Peterson, who doesn't have any directorial credits to shout about, it was shot simultaneously with a sequel to be called Critters 4, and unlike the first two, does not feature any of the Brown family or the town of Grover's Bend. Instead of a rural community, the Krites find themselves in Los Angeles after being stowed away under a car transporting a family to their new apartment. Luckily, Charlie the bounty hunter is on the case. The film stars Amy Brooks as Annie, Joseph Cousins as her brother Johnny, John Calvin as the father figure Clifford, and Don Keith Opper resuming his role as Charlie. This film is most notable for having been the first feature film for a young Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays the son of the building's landlord. The ending sets up the fourth film in the franchise when a containment pod is dropped from space into the building, sent for Charlie to transport the last remaining eggs of the Krite species back to his bounty hunter ship in space. Critters 4 followed in 1992 and saw Charlie sent into space with the pod and eggs, which get intercepted by a wreckage collection ship. The film is set over half a century later in the year 2045. The ship is crewed by Captain Rick, played by Anders Hove, Engineer Al, played by Brad Dourif, and Pilot Fran, played by Angela Bassett. The eggs inevitably hatch when the pod is opened and the Krites attack the crew, leading to a run-in at the end with Charlie's fellow bounty hunter friend Ugg, in a return role from the first and second films for actor Terrence Mann. This fourth feature was directed by Rupert Harvey, who was the producer of the first and third Critters films, and was also producer on the most recent additions to the franchise, which would not materialize until 2019, a full 27 years after this last feature. Critters: A New Binge was an 8-episode short series for the Sci-Fi Channel and streaming service Shudder and released in 2019. The main plot is set in current-day Iowa and features all new characters. The basic premise is the Krites return to Earth to rescue a lone Krite still living in secrecy on the planet, but the teens from a local high school stand in the way of the creature's plans. The cast includes Joey Morgan, Steffi Chinsalvo, Kirsten Robeck, and Gilbert Gottfried. The final entry of the franchise so far would also come in 2019 with a TV movie called Critters Attack. The basic premise sees student Drea and two teenagers find a Krite in the nearby forest, but it isn't alone, and soon they find that they need help from the mysterious Aunt Dee, who might have a history with the intergalactic beasts herself. Dee Wallace returns to the franchise as Aunt Dee. This was intended to be the same character Helen she played in the first film, but the name had to be changed due to legal reasons. The film also features Tatiana Washington, Jaden Noel, and Jack Fulton. And as currently in January 2021, there is no developments on any further incarnations to the franchise. However, there is a large following and fan community wanting more, and they have been creating their own fan films with homemade puppets and purchased screen-used props, so the future is still open to more from a franchise that is almost 35 years old. Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Try from Japan, the video series where we look at all things Japanese, and December and January have definitely been a busy time for me in terms of LaserDisc acquisitions. eBay seems to be rife with them at the moment for whatever reason, and there's been a lot of cheap Japanese releases on there too, and one that I have managed to acquire for today, which is Critters 2. So this is the second in the Critters film franchise. Okay, so let's have a look at the LaserDisc itself. So this is the front cover. As you can see, it says Critters 2 along the top there in Japanese kanji. And then down here at the bottom it says Critters 2, the main course, which is the English title for it. Now there's a big difference on this LaserDisc cover than the original posters and the original VHS that was released for the film, and it is the actual image on the front. So this is a very cool piece of artwork, and it does display a key plot element from the film, and so if you're not expecting it, when it comes to the end of the film, there's a big revelation that these small creatures can join together to make one large creature, which is obviously what this is picturing. However, you wouldn't want to give that big plot point away on the front of your image because everyone would be expecting that to happen. And so, as cool as this is, if you hadn't seen this film already, you'd be expecting this to occur in the film, and it wouldn't be such a big revelation at the end of the film as it is if you go in blind, not knowing what's going to happen. So, cool image, but it gives away the plot if you haven't seen the film already. And then underneath the Critters 2, it has your cast list. So it's got your main cast members, which are Scott Grimes, Leanne Curtis, Don Keith Opper, Lynn Shay, and Terence Mann. And then it's got your writer, which was David Twohy and Mick Garris, your director, which was Mick Garris, your producer, which was Don Keith Opper's brother, Barry Opper, and then your science fiction or SFX, your special effects, were provided by the Chodo brothers, who are very good model makers and puppeteers. And they produced the costumes for probably one of their most well-known films, The Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which was another comedy horror film that I must recommend if you haven't seen it, to search for Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That's clowns with a K, not a C. Right, let's flip over and have a look on the back. So the back, of course, has a description of what the film is about, and then it has, like most of these Japanese ones, the cast and the main crew, or staff as they call it. And then it's from 1988, and then you have some screenshots from the film itself. So you've got 5 little Krites there. You've got a couple of critters enjoying a meal. You've got some terrified looking characters there, And then you've got two of the main bounty hunters, which are characters from the first film, which also appear in this sequel. And then at the bottom here, it tells you that it's 2 sides, 82 minutes in length. It was NTSC format, stereo sound, and it obviously has all of your other Japanese warnings, etc. on there. You can see it is a CD video or LaserDisc. And then inside, there was nothing included in this one, so no extra paperwork or anything. That doesn't mean that it didn't come with that originally, it's just not in this copy. And then the two-sided single LaserDisc as per usual, with just the title of the film on, so not too interesting to look at from the inside, but a very cool image there, especially if you are a big horror fan. That would be a nice big poster if it was blown up to put on your wall. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Next video will be something different from LaserDiscs. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I shall see you again on the next episode of Let's Try from Japan.